For our first subject of the day, we're going to talk about the strange phenomenon that is Keir Starmer, Labour
Leader of
leader,
the opposition.
and the Labour Party in general. And this headline, it's not. This is just sort of an entry point for us to discuss more broadly. But obviously, the big news is he went on TV and with Andrew Marr, I think it was, and
Sunday
basically
morning.
Sunday morning, yeah, and basically he rolled back on most of what he'd been saying for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, even, but definitely when he was running for leader just last year, he's
Some
now
selling
completely,
points, and now, as you said, just rode back on them. And it's like,
yeah.
why?
So he's basically he's taking a massive U-turn, and so the one of the big headlines that came out of this was Starmer accepting end of EU free movement. So if Labour were to come into power, they wouldn't look to negotiate a deal. They'd stick with this hard Brexit, which is causing so much disaster. Which, as leader of the opposition, is an insane position to take. You've already voted for this terrible deal, and every day we're getting new evidence of just how awful it is. And now he's saying, "Nah, we won't renegotiate it. It's too much like hard work." So it's an insane position for an opposition party to be taking.
It's an untenable position because you're not actually opposing anything. You're just kind of the Tories light. Yeah, you don't have any value. He just contradicted all the values he said he has. Because at this point, it's like, did you ever believe these things? I don't know, maybe. But it certainly seems like it's the old classic. These are my values, and if you don't like them, I have others. What does he stand for? After, what is it now, 9, 10, well, bloody hell, 10 months now almost, and we still don't really know who he is or what he stands for. And like or lump Jeremy Corbyn, you knew what that man believed or whatever. He had positions on things both internationally and domestically. Whereas
Mm.
with Keir Starmer, he just it kind of feels like he just goes with the way he perceives the winds blowing, or and he never wants to come down too much in support of anything because he's so terrified of attack from anything. But it's like, dude, if you don't stand for something, you don't stand for anything. And
Yeah.
it's what at this point, because it's been a while now. He's not just been in the job for a
No.
little bit. We're getting on for a year now, and we still don't know who the guy is.
If you were to ask me today, what does Labour stand for?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I've,
What are their
I've
policies? I don't
yeah,
know.
I've got no idea. Basically, their policies are we're gonna we're gonna support the Conservatives on everything because we're terrified of everyone, but we're
Mm.
gonna pretend our offer is gonna be, well, if we were in power, we just do it slightly more competently and with
Yeah.
less corruption. That's not a selling point. You've got to
We'd
stand
be
for
a
your
week
values.
earlier, or we'd be 24 hours earlier with the latest lockdown. We'd
Yeah,
have shut schools 24 hours earlier. And it's like,
yeah,
you're not even the diet version of,
no,
you're not even the Diet Coke of the Tories. You're just like, well, we would have done something quite similar,
yeah,
but we would have been better about it. And it's like, well, it's just so vague. You know what I mean?
yeah. And
And
this is the problem. My real concern for Labour is that what happens now with Labour is what has happened to the Democratic Party in America.
mm,
That the Republicans used to be a centre-right party,
hmm
roughly, and they've over the last couple of decades, you can debate when it started, how it shifted, that sort of thing. But and then obviously very recently, much more extremely, they've been shifting further and further to the right.
hmm
So what the Democrats did is, instead of saying, okay, we're going to be the alternative on the left that had us the House and the Senate for like 3 decades, that they controlled the House and the Senate, and they were like, no, no, we don't like that strategy. We're not going to be for the every man and the every woman. We're going to move to the right,
mm.
and that's what they've been doing. So now the US is going through a weird political experiment where you've got a far right party
And the right party.
and a right party.
Can,
That's insane. And what worries me is that Labour's going to do the same.
mm. And they're gonna chase after a certain sliver of voters who aren't really gonna vote for them anyway, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And
no,
and you're gonna leave
exactly.
behind your traditional, the people who have been voting, for Labour. It's predominantly younger people, ethnic minority people, people in
Yeah,
metropolitan areas, the North working class areas. But that's been a bit of a toss up at the moment. But by trying to hunt those people in the spectrum between the centre right and the far right, by going after them, you often think you might leave a couple of people behind, and you
They,
can't take anyone for granted. If there's
no,
anything the last election has showed us, is that you can't take interest groups and sections of society for granted. Otherwise,
and
we'll vote for someone else, and
and that's
nothing's
exactly what
guaranteed.
they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. They're saying, where else are these left-leaning voters going to go? There's no one else, and
There's
that's
no
so dangerous because there are other places to go.
Labour leader rules out extension renegotiation if party wins next election. And it's like, why are you tying yourself into these? Like we were saying about why are you chasing a certain subset of voters? Because I think
Yeah,
even for people who voted Brexit, I remember seeing a poll when it first came out, and it was you know 33% of them of Brexit voters on average, their first primary focus was immigration, right?
yeah,
And 50% was like sovereignty, where's power, who's in charge. Okay,
yeah,
so you're even though Brexit, was a vote for kind of anti-immigration, you can't kind of hide from that.
yeah.
Wasn't even within that vote, immigration was only the second biggest factor within it. So like you're fighting a subsection of a subsection, and in a post-coronavirus world, I'm not sure how much if immigration is going to be kind of
It
the thing that
doesn't.
blamed at this
It
point.
doesn't resonate. If you look at some of the YouGov polls they've been doing, immigration's falling off the fucking map. It's not
Mm,
an issue anymore. People just aren't interested.
yeah.
So make the case. Make the case. You're the opposition.
Mm,
You're ceding the field without even fighting. It's
mm,
ridiculous. So anyway, there's some interesting takes going around on this. So Tom MacArthur had an interesting one, which is obviously, you know, Labour is abandoning the internationalist sort of
credentials.
credentials that Labour has always had, really, which is crazy. You know, like he points out, they backed hard Brexit, which they didn't need to do. They didn't need to do it, and they did it anyway. And
Hmm.
now they're basically parroting the Tories' rhetoric on, well, you know, freedom of movement, don't need that. It doesn't benefit us anyway. It benefits us massively, and we could renegotiate that, but we're just not going to. And
Mm, mm,
we're just ceding ground. We're not
yeah.
we're not resisting anything. We're not even trying to make the case. We're just saying, yeah, we're taking that for granted. We're abandoning that. It's like,
Uh, these were values that he stood on when it came for the leadership election, and
yeah,
it's just been a total 180. Let's not forget that he was the person looking for pushing a second referendum at the Labour Party conference and everything.
yeah,
And he's more Brexit than Jeremy Corbyn ever was.
yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
gone
exactly.
from being more Remain to more Brexit than Jeremy Corbyn ever was, and it's just
No,
like I don't
exactly.
know if this is a vote winner, bro. I really don't know, man.
I don't think it is, and that brings us to the second point with what John Worth has said here. He's I think he's political editor for the Bild in Germany, and he said what's the strategy? What is the strategy? So if you're going all in for this pro Brexit red wall voter who I don't really think it exists, and you sort of play footsie with nationalism, basically is what you're doing, right?
Mm,
And your one selling point is, oh, well, we're basically going to be the Tories, but we're going to be more competent, and you're not going to be quite as embarrassed by your government. It's not
yeah,
going to work. Like John Worth says, you will fail, because what's going to happen is, yeah, you might win some of that red wall, but you're not actually making a very strong alternative offer. So you probably won't win as many as if you actually made an honest alternative offer to say, no, this is the vision we have for the country. And the other problem you're going to have is your left wing block of
yeah.
voters that you need are
Well,
going to go, fuck you. Why would we stay when you're basically offering us Tory light? We'll go vote for a different party, and
mm,
they will. So
and they
this,
will. That's
yeah,
the thing that you cannot. Scotland and the North is anything to go by. You can't take
yeah,
vote places for granted.
yeah, you can't, and they will go, and it's a ridiculous strategy, and just like we were saying a little while ago, what does Keir Starmer stand for?
You don't know.
The last tweet here nails it. It feels like Keir Starmer is sort of in a beta mode for a new kind of politics. The politics of not. He's not Corbyn. He's not Johnson.
Hmm.
He's not really even himself anymore because he's not. Because we know the things he's on record for, and he's saying all the opposite things now. That's not going to win you votes because people go, "You're disingenuous. You don't stand for anything. You're not authentic."
That doesn't inspire confidence in
No.
anything you say, you know. And then also, I think a point going back to the John Worth um, tweet. Also, the Lib Dems, you know, they're not going to go into a coalition with Labour. They're going to, if given the parliamentary arithmetic, they are much more likely to go into a coalition with Conservatives than they are Labour or any of the other parties.
So this is the electoral sort of map and calculus from the 2019 election. This really highlights the sort of depth of Labour's issue here. Where do they go? How do you thread the needle here?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got to be very, very careful. Scotland's gone. You're not getting Scotland back. Scotland is SNP central. You're not getting Scotland back. I live in Scotland. I'm not voting Labour.
Mm.
I'm not voting Labour. I would rather nail my testicles with it to my thigh than vote Labour at this point. I'm not going to do that because they're a mess. Scottish Labour's even more of a mess. Scotland's gone.
Mm-hmm.
You're losing Wales.
I was about to highlight that. One of the big things about Wales, look, Anglesey, you know, Wrexham, Pembrokeshire. Although Pembrokeshire is often a bit more of a toss-up than the traditional, but even still, it wasn't always like that.
No.
And then even some of the Valleys constituencies, near Cardiff, near Swansea,
Yeah.
they flipped, and it's like you're bleeding votes, man. You're bleeding votes, and
Yeah.
and I don't see this kind of politics of not really standing for anything, of just being, oh well, I'm anti this. Well, look, I'm better. Look how crap that is. It didn't. I think a good a parallel might be, Hillary Clinton, how she was just like, well, look,
Yeah.
I'm not bloody Donald Trump. It's going to go down the same well. You don't inspire confidence by being
No.
anti anything. You inspire confidence by having values, having a vision for the future, and standing up for those values instead of just being like, well, I'm anti that, but also he's not really even anti Boris Johnson
No.
because he kind of
No.
agrees with everything Boris Johnson says. So you're not even that. You just air. It's just nothing.